She wasn't supposed to be the one who changed everything. Not a professional, not a household name with trophies stacked behind her. Just a college kid balancing bus rides, game nights, and early morning classes. Yet somehow, before she was even allowed to enter the draft, Caitlin Clark forced the most powerful brands in sports to admit they'd been asleep at the wheel. While other athletes waited years for a chance at national exposure, she was already signing the kind of deals executives usually reserve for champions with decades-long resumes. One endorsement hit after another, each bigger than the last, and suddenly billion-dollar corporations were rewriting their entire playbooks around a student still grinding for midterms. The wild part? None of them expected it to work. They took a risk, a gamble on someone real instead of perfectly polished. But the moment her first campaign dropped, the old rules evaporated. Commercials didn't just get views, they took over the internet. Products didn't just sell, they vanished from shelves. Fans weren't just watching, they were participating. It was like someone finally flipped a switch inside sports marketing, and every brand that wasn't paying attention instantly regretted it. Because this wasn't hype. This wasn't manufactured celebrity. This was proof that the future of sports wasn't where executives had been looking, a shifting culture they failed to understand. And the entire industry was caught off guard by the fact that a young woman from Iowa, playing a sport they'd spent years undervaluing, suddenly became the most influential marketer in the game. Caitlin Clark didn't just show up and succeed. She exposed a blind spot so enormous that corporate America is still scrambling to recover. And the question everyone is now terrified to ask is simple. If they were this wrong about her, what else have they been missing? For decades, the biggest names in marketing played everything safe. Same athletes, same formulas, same stale belief that women's sports didn't have the power to move culture or products. Executives convinced themselves that only male superstars could sell the dream, so they poured their money into the same few faces year after year, not because it was smart, but because it was familiar. Then Caitlin Clark came crashing through that comfort zone without even trying. She wasn't polished into perfection by a PR team. She didn't walk around rehearsing every word for the cameras. What people saw was what they got. The swagger, the confidence, the fire that made fans feel like they were witnessing something real. And that authenticity was the one thing corporate America never planned for. The industry had been treating audiences like they were predictable, assuming viewers would always fall for flashy edits, dramatic slogans, and glossy store power. But fans changed. They wanted someone who felt human, someone who celebrated big moments and took risks without worrying how it looked. Every time Caitlin pulled up from impossible range, every time she stared down a defender with a smirk, every time she refused to shrink under pressure, she was building a bond no brand strategist anticipated. She broke the system because she wasn't built for it. She didn't fit the old marketing checklist. She erased it. The court became her commercial. Every viral clip was a free ad that proved she didn't need to be manufactured. She was the moment. And as millions of people tuned in not just to watch basketball, but to watch her, companies finally understood the truth they'd tried to ignore. Authenticity isn't a trend. It's the new currency, and Caitlin Clark controls all of it. But one brand would be the first to take the leap, the first to realize that betting on the future could be far more powerful than paying for the past. State Farm wasn't just looking for another polished spokesperson. They were desperate for someone who could cut through the noise. Traditional ads were collapsing. The old formula of placing a familiar face next to a catchy slogan wasn't convincing anyone to care anymore. Younger audiences wanted something different, someone who didn't feel like a corporation in a jersey. So State Farm made a move that looked reckless on paper. They didn't chase the biggest names in pro sports. They didn't demand a championship pedigree. They chose a college player who hadn't taken a single WNBA dribble. It was the kind of decision that could get careers ruined inside a boardroom. But the second that campaign launched, everything changed.
The commercial wasn't overloaded with special effects or forced energy. It was simple, quick, real. Caitlyn delivering one-liners with that dry confidence only she can pull off. Shoot, shoot. And instantly a catchphrase was born. Kids started mimicking her timing. Fans clipped the scene into memes, and TikTok turned a 7-second moment into a cultural event. That's when the panic hit every other marketing department in America, because the data that rolled in didn't lie. Engagement numbers that crushed campaigns backed by global icons. Brand recognition spikes the insurance world had never seen from a college athlete. And most importantly, audience trust. Numbers that executives didn't even know were possible. State Farm didn't just sign Caitlyn Clark, they unlocked a door no one else realized existed. They proved that fans didn't want a commercial, they wanted a personality. They didn't want a script, they wanted authenticity, and Caitlyn delivered it effortlessly. The industry's message was clear: stick to the old blueprint and you fall behind. Bet on someone real and you rewrite the entire game. But before the competition could regroup, another giant stepped forward, and their move was even more shocking.
When Nike makes a move, the world pays attention. They don't do surprises, they don't take uncalculated risks. Every campaign they launch is engineered to dominate the conversation. So when they stepped back onto the Super Bowl stage after more than 2 decades away, everyone assumed they'd bring a global megastar, someone with championship rings and worldwide fame. Instead, they chose Caitlyn Clark, a college junior, still unpaid by any professional league, still traveling with a student ID in her wallet. It sounded impossible until the ad dropped. No explosions, no celebrity cameos, no glossy perfect hero lens. Just Caitlyn in a quiet gym, reflecting on the sacrifices nobody sees. Missing prom, missing normal life, missing sleep, because she was too busy chasing something bigger. Her voice wasn't dramatic or forced, it was honest. And that honesty hit harder than any special effects ever could. Millions of viewers who had never watched a women's basketball game suddenly felt like they knew her. They saw the kid who put in the extra reps, the dreamer from a small town with big goals, the athlete who wasn't asking for attention, she was earning it. Nike wasn't promoting a basketball player, they were showcasing a movement. They recognized that Caitlyn didn't just represent the sport, she represented a generation that refuses to wait for permission. And the best part? It worked. Viewers didn't just remember the commercial, they connected with it. Conversations exploded online. Search trends skyrocketed. People wanted to know who she was and why Nike had given her the biggest spotlight in advertising. That moment marked the shift from hype to history. State Farm showed what she could do, Nike proved it wasn't a fluke. And suddenly, every brand in America was trying to figure out how to get her before it was too late. But one company wouldn't settle for a commercial. They wanted something deeper, a product tied directly to the way she lives and works. By the time Gatorade stepped into the mix, they weren't interested in another photo shoot or a quick cameo holding a sports drink. They'd seen what happened when brands tried to treat Caitlyn Clark like a typical endorsement partner. It wasn't enough. Fans expected more. They wanted something that actually reflected the way she trains, the way she recovers, the details that make her great. So Gatorade did something that flipped the traditional script completely. Instead of asking Caitlyn to promote a product already sitting on their shelves, they asked her how to make a new one. They studied her daily routine, the miles she runs, the shots she takes, the hours she grinds when nobody's watching. They built a hydration and recovery system designed specifically around her rhythm and her needs. Not mass-produced branding, not a logo slapped onto the usual bottle. This move wasn't just smart marketing, it was personal. Fans immediately understood that this wasn't just Caitlyn Clark spokesperson, it was Caitlyn Clark creator. Every detail felt connected to her reality on the court. And because of that connection, the launch wasn't just successful, it was a frenzy. The moment the product hit the market, it disappeared, sold out everywhere. People didn't buy it because a brand told them to. They bought it because it felt like a piece of her, something she actually used, something born from the work she's put into becoming the player they admire. And with that success, the message became impossible for the industry to ignore. Fans no longer want endorsements. They want involvement. They want athletes who care about what they're putting their names on. And Caitlin has never signed anything just to collect a check. But if Gatorade changed the relationship between athletes and products, the next move would change the business model entirely. One brand wasn't satisfied with showcasing Caitlin Clark. They wanted her to help build the future from the ground up.
So they did what no sports brand had ever done before. They asked her to help design a signature collection. Not as a mascot, not as a marketing prop, as a creator. For the first time in Wilson's history, the same company behind the official basketballs used in both the NBA and WNBA, a female athlete was given true creative control. They didn't hand her a finished product and say, "Hold this." They sat her down at the table and said, "Tell us what the future of this game should look like." That decision revealed a truth brands had been ignoring for decades. The fans who follow women's sports aren't spectators, they're participants. They want to feel closer to the athletes they admire, to own something born from the same passion those athletes bring to the court. The commercial for her Wilson collaboration captured that perfectly. No roaring crowd, no bright spotlight, just Caitlin, alone in an empty gym. Sneaker slotting, ball echoing with each bounce, the quiet grind that built the player she is. It wasn't about fame, it was about the love of the game. And everyone who watched could feel it. When the collection finally dropped, it didn't just perform well, it became a cultural milestone. Fans weren't buying a product, they were buying history. They were buying identity. They were buying a piece of the movement she was leading. This partnership didn't just raise the ceiling for women in sports marketing, it shattered it. The old blueprint of athlete deals was officially useless. Caitlin Clark proved that athletes don't just endorse culture, they create it. But the most uncomfortable part for corporate America? They had the chance to do this years ago, and fear kept them from seeing the gold right in front of them. And that's where the story takes a dramatic turn, because the success of these campaigns didn't just make brands money, it exposed the uncomfortable truth they had been running from for years. For years, major brands pretended that women's sports were a maybe someday market, something to support out of goodwill, not something capable of delivering blockbuster profit. They dismissed it as a nice bonus when numbers looked good, and an easy excuse when they didn't. Executives loved to talk about potential, but never wanted to spend the money to actually unlock it. Then Caitlin Clark arrived, and her results made those excuses look ridiculous. Her campaigns didn't just work, they dominated. Sold out products, record-breaking engagement, commercials turning into cultural trends overnight. She didn't just bring attention, she converted attention to action. And that's where corporate America got exposed, because now the proof is right in front of them. Women's sports never lacked an audience. Brands just lacked courage. They were terrified of being wrong, so they played safe. They invested in the same predictable faces, the same leagues, the same storylines. Meanwhile, a passionate and growing fan base waited for someone to give them the content and representation they'd been asking for all along. Caitlin blew up that outdated mindset. She showed that the real power doesn't belong to executives making cautious decisions behind glass doors. It belongs to players who are in loyalty every time they step on the court. She revealed that fans want authenticity, not perfection, that relatability can outperform superstardom, and that the cultural moment women's sports had been building toward was already here. Now those same executives who once underestimated the value of athletes like her are scrambling to get into the game, panicking as they realize they weren't just wrong, they were late. And the latecomers are about to face a new problem. Caitlin Clark isn't waiting for them. She's already writing the next chapter, and not everyone in the league is thrilled about it. Because when one star rises this fast, this loud, and this far ahead, others start to wonder if they're being left behind. Caitlin Clark has already conquered the categories that made her a household name: apparel, equipment, hydration, insurance. But the biggest shift isn't what she's selling now, it's what she can sell next. Tech brands want her, Streaming platforms want her. Luxury companies, travel industries, lifestyle labels, all of them are lining up not because she's a basketball star, but because she connects with people in a way that feels genuine. She doesn't fit into one lane anymore. She is the lane. And that level of power changes everything. It forces companies to rethink what kind of athlete belongs at the forefront of culture. It forces advertisers to decide whether they'll invest early or keep playing catch-up. And it forces the WNBA itself to re-examine how it promotes its next generation. Because not everyone is celebrating her rise with open arms. As Caitlin steps into the pros, the spotlight she brings is blinding. Every camera, every headline, every surge of attention naturally centers on her. That kind of gravitational pull creates both opportunity and resentment. Some players have waited their entire careers for the recognition she's getting already. Others wonder if her spotlight will overshadow achievements that came long before her name was known.
That tension won't slow her down. If anything, it's going to accelerate the evolution. Because every record she breaks, every sold-out arena she creates, every moment that pushes women's sports further into the mainstream forces a bigger question onto the table. Who's going to rise with her? And who will get left behind, trying to protect a status quo that no longer exists? Caitlin's influence isn't finished growing. It's barely started. And as the next wave of deals and cultural conversations form around her, one thing is already clear. She isn't just changing how brands market athletes, she's changing how athletes define their own value. The game has officially shifted, and anyone still clinging to the old rules is already too late. Caitlin Clark didn't wait for the world to decide she was worth the investment. She forced them to see it. She didn't ask for permission to rewrite the blueprint. She tore up the old one before anyone realized what was happening. And now the industry that doubted women's sports for decades is scrambling to claim they always believed. But the truth is simple. She didn't become a marketing phenomenon because the system supported her. She became one because she broke the system entirely. The commercials, the sold-out products, the viral moments, those weren't the story, they were the evidence. Evidence that authenticity beats perfection. Evidence that fans want someone who feels real. Evidence that the future of sports marketing isn't coming, it's already here. Caitlin Clark didn't just get a seat at the table, she flipped the table. And now every brand in America is fighting for a spot in the world she's building next. So here's the question only time can answer. Which company recognizes her power first this time, and which one becomes the next cautionary tale? Drop your prediction in the comments. Is it going to be tech, fashion, something nobody sees coming yet? Make sure you're subscribed, because the next breakdown is going deeper into how her rise is shaking the WNBA from the inside out, and why some players are silently furious about the new spotlight. This wasn't advertising. This wasn't hype. This was a revolution. And Caitlin Clark already won.